Before we get into the video, do not forget to like, comment and subscribe. Now just before I start, I want to say I appreciate everybody that's watching these videos. Now that's all said and done, let's get down to it. When it comes to this thing called UK drill, if we're talking about one of the most sought after, one of the most real, then we have to put DigDat up there in the top 3, and that's the minimum. In a genre where people love to bicker and claim to be the baddest man on the planet, how people know their CV and how they don't want to be messed with and how they respect on the landing, one of the most real artists has to be DigDat. Like it or not, he hasn't shied away from his past, but he didn't let it define him either. At just 13 years old, he was sentenced to roughly 10 years in prison for attempted murder. That right there lets you know that DigDat was one badass kid. But the thing is, the guy didn't have any guidance. Growing up in the system does that to you. Now Darren Diggs, aka DigDat, was misguided and of course was a tyrant. As I said, at only 13 years old, he was jailed for nearly a decade for stabbing a 14-year-old teenager 3 times outside a youth club in Ladywell. Now, at the time of his sentence, which was July 2013, the judge says that the damage DigDat caused will leave his victim needing antibiotics for the rest of his life. So according to the reports, the stabbing took place somewhere around 9:30 p.m. When the 14-year-old boy was stabbed, he was knifed in 3 separate locations. Each blow was deliberate, including a significant damage done to his chest. Now thankfully, the 14-year-old boy didn't die. Otherwise, we'll be looking at murder. And that was in part thanks to youth workers who saw the incident taking place, and what they did was rush to the victim's side and provide first aid until the ambulance service arrived. At 13 years old, you're not the smartest you're going to be. However, you would think people would know not to pull out a knife and slash and hack at another person over some petty beef, and, of all places, in a public area such as outside a community centre. But this occurs often when people do not value their life. Now DigDat was arrested the very next day with 2 friends, who were later released without charge. Now DigDat did serious damage to that 14-year-old victim. His injuries were so serious that the boy required his spleen to be removed. The police who were assigned to the case says that if the youth workers hadn't administered first aid, DigDat could have been a convicted murderer. And out of his near 10-year sentence, DigDat served just over 5 years, and he has never looked back. The guy served his time, and you have to applaud him for becoming a success story, because frankly, by society's standards, he is not supposed to make it. Stay safe.